Hello, team. Welcome back to another Line Warcast. Here is your map. City on the top right, city on the far right. We have a city in the middle, two cities up here, actually, three cities on the left, trade route on the left. Our two players are Pabst, who will be in blue, and Swamorck. We'll refer to them as Swam. For the rest of the replay, they are going to be in red. We can see both players are trying to choose this part of the map, which is indeed the best spot to go. Pabst on the right side again in blue, and Swam going up here now. So I mean, at first, Swam wanted to go down here on this big landmass, which is the play. But after you pick the same spot as your opponent so many times, it can make sense. I mean, this is how I like to play. I just back off and go somewhere else. Love the dock real quick. Be able to go across here, or even like more importantly, across to this island to get this sort of economy. Love the barracks in the top to be able to cap a lot of this, because this is a decent amount of economy, right? There's three cities. Pabst, on the other hand, is building three factories. It's going to be all artillery for now. A tank rush would have been kind of cool in this position like this if you think your opponent actually spawned like in this field with you. Like if Swam spawned out here, running tanks onto the production could be huge. It's going to be 6 tanks off of presumably 6, maybe 3 tanks. I don't know what Pabst's plan is, but there's going to be 3 tanks behind this and an airport for Pabst. So no barracks as of yet. Barracks for Swam, and we're just going to be able to see, like, we're going to see how quick Swam can kind of take control of this left side of the map, because economy-wise, this is going to be interesting. Pabst has more possible land, which is more economy, but Swam has more economic like development of towns over time. Gas here for Swam. This is a very safe gas when it really comes down to it. It's so close to the water, which sucks if your opponent gets boats close to the gas, because then the boats can clearly kill it. But in this case, I think Swam is pretty confident that Pabst has not spawned in the top right. It's going to take a while to get going in this game, I think, because these tanks aren't even going to get out of the forest for a little bit, and then really I guess the tanks are going to just shoot up here. We could see what Pabst's vision is, right? Like, so neither player knows exactly where the other is clearly. I mean, I think Swam probably can guess where Pabst has gone, and by the time Pabst gets up to this gas, they probably should know that Swam isn't like right up here, which could be another spot to go, I think. There's no real gas actually. So the one of the questions becomes the gases, right? So there's 3 for Pabst that are relatively easy to get, and for Swam there's this one and this leftmost one. It's actually not that much gas for Swam. That could come into play later on, because Pabst definitely has more gas potential. So let's look at the incomes. 332 for Swam and 368 for Pabst. I feel like in games that sort of start like this, where both players got a lot of time to macro up, the economy is one of the big things to look at, because if you start falling behind in the economy, it just gets more and more steamrolly over time. Potentially, if your opponent invests in economy of their own, like imagine if Paps was just going for barracks here, like another barracks, keep taking all of this land and get all the way up here. You could get a pretty decent amount of economy. These tanks are actually going to be capping, which isn't horrible, but probably for Pap's sakes, you want to be scouting a little bit with those tanks. I love that Swam's going to go across here. Potentially is what's going to happen, is this transport boat's going to go across. There is a gas for Swam, so Swam's gas is fine. Paps hasn't taken a gas, so we can see that their gas is super low. If we go back to their vision, there you go. Switch back just in time for that wonderful sound. The holy cow gets some gas sound. On the stream, when we play, when I play, I hear it very often. Chat knows that. We're going 3 more tanks. This is going to be 9 tanks. This is a lot of tanks. Paps, of course, needs to get a gas here. And there it is. And this could kind of mess with Swam if 10 or like 12 tanks or whatever, 9 tanks are able to kind of sneak their way up. But it's probably going to be able to do a decent, like enough of warning. because Swam's going to get these infantry up closer, you know, like, so it's going to be a decent amount of time to build up forces and defend the tanks. We could hear that there was industry for Swam. Is this potentially too early? Questionable. I would do this because if you think that you're going to be able to keep macroing, industry will kick in 7 minutes. Towns do too. So like if you built a town, or if you built the, you know, on a city block, but you build the town first, after about 7 minutes that will actually return on your investment. So if you think that it's going to be longer than that, it's totally cool. I think the general rule of thumb is to only eco once all the territories that you can possibly get are taken. So I wonder if here, like this North Island for Swam, that's actually doing really well. We can look at the economy. 440 for Swam and 536 for Pabst. So maybe even going across and building a quick dock for Swam to get on this other landmass on the far right. Or even just sending more barracks down here, like building a barracks. Not quite sure though. It's going to be interesting to see if these like if Pabst can actually get enough gas and move these tanks. These tanks are going to be very, very dangerous. Extremely dangerous. I mean, what does Swam have to defend this? Like the only reason this isn't working for Pabst is because the tanks are all bugging out. Still going for tanks. I think Pabst is getting a little trigger happy on the tanks. It would almost be great for Swam to go second airport. Because, okay, so Swam can now see where Pabst is. More industry for Swam. Swam's gonna get this far left island. I guess this is the second gas for Swam. That's decent to like sprint to that. Because Swam is definitely gonna need gas. With an airport and a dock and presumably a potential second airport coming up quick. Like there's already 3 industry for Swam, so slowly that will catch up. Let's see. So Swam now knows that tanks are a real thing, and maybe there will be a move to go defense, like a little bit defensive here. The striker launch from Swam is a good reaction. Probably want to group up some units around the buildings because the tanks are going to have to go to the buildings to be useful. And I'm not sure when dealing with a lot of tanks, but I feel like sometimes it's good to make your own tanks. That's generally not how I react in games. Not exactly sure how to do it, but I've seen other players kind of do that. When you see your opponent going for tanks, just build your own tanks and defend with them. There's a lot of tanks, and it's tons of gas for Pabst, as we can see. Income-wise, though, 620 for Pabst and 650 for Swam. So Swam's now starting to catch up. Because Swam was definitely behind at one point. This is a great body block. Buying time with these infantry. Yeah, that's pretty good. Like, body blocking tanks is huge because it really wastes time. Pabst has 2 gases now, though, so these tanks aren't stopping anytime soon. It's all tanks. We can see what the follow-up is, and it's going to be SAMs behind it. So it's like tanks into already SAM. The big question in the game is, can Swim defend this? And this might actually be so many tanks that 2 gases isn't enough. For real, 2 gases is not enough? Yeah, I guess this is a heck of a lot of tanks. That's a couple of tanks, if you ask me. Yeah, see, these tanks are now going this way because Pabst sees where the production is. Okay, so it's a decent reaction, I think, from Swam to go 2 more factory. It's unfortunate that they weren't a little bit quicker. But, you know, this is an absurd amount of tanks, so who knows if Swam was actually expecting this many tanks. The tanks are actually out of gas. So I don't know what general rule of thumb for number of tanks the refineries is, but these tanks are going to be able to get on top of the production if they have gas. Income check again is wildly important. 700 for Swam and 700 for Pabst. So this is about as close as we can be. We can see on the left side of it, sorry, we have to keep switching between the players' views. On the left side, we can see that Swam is starting to get that left part of the island. That's a lot of eco. These strikers are doing a great job, but the question of whether it's enough. Boat's trying to move into position to deal with the artillery and the trailing infantry. Don't mind this move. Definitely want to get the artillery back on the buildings, I think, because one of the things you want to do here is there's actually no production facilities that are actually exposed necessarily. So if, as the player defending the tank rush, if you can just nestle your units in between each of the buildings, then the tanks will derp out as they're trying to move around. Although this is still like 10 tanks right on production. This is really not good. We can hear another factory. This is unfortunately much too close for Swam, because these tanks, I think, are going to be able to at least kill one more factory. Got to keep it on the eco, though. 734 for Swam and 716 for Pabst, because at this point, Pabst is going to have the top right of the, like the island on the top right. You know what I mean? I want to watch this because I want to make sure. Yeah, both factories are going to go down, but up here, like Pabst has a city up here, and actually a trade route that we never even noticed. It will be interesting if they could take and hold that trade route. The tanks are still going hard in the paint on the production. Now they're starting to get a decent amount of artillery, but I think this airport's going to fall too, and Swam's going to lose all of the strikers. Huge commando play. Huge commando play. I was about to say that Swam has to get something going, because if your opponent does this, one of the best ways to deal with it is start like backstabbing your opponent then. You know, like you have to get the focus off of this somehow. Over time, with 4 artillery pieces, still one more building's gonna go down. I mean, tanks are so good. Luckily, I think for Swam, like Pabst has a lot of money here that is just being floated. And floating money sometimes is decent because then you don't pay the maintenance upkeep, or like the upkeep costs of all the buildings. But I think in this situation, Pabst really needs to start thinking about what the transition is, whether it's to more cities. Here's some airports. Those are actually in a decent spot. The commando play by Swam is huge. Being able to keep those gases. I mean, if Swam can snipe the gases, gets rid of these tanks moving around, but they're gonna get the dock as well. Luckily for Swam, they definitely have the naval advantage. So if they scout up against the coast, they should know that they're decent on this left water. Again, commandos coming in clutch. Pabst has so many SAMs at this point. This is 3 factories pumping SAMs. 776 income for Pabst, 782 for Swam. And over time, Swam can clean this up and then start macroing with economy, because at this point you want to think about economy. Well, actually, you probably want to build production up here if you're Swam to try to take this back. Like, look at how much damage these tanks did. So what in the end of the day, or at the end of the day, it's like 2 factories, 3 factories maybe, and an airport and a dock. 2 airports immediately and a dock from Swam. I don't mind that at all. Those tanks are really expensive, and you can kind of assume your opponent didn't go for more tanks again. I don't know why, but it feels like generally if a player opens up a decent amount of tanks, they're not going to keep making tanks. Just because you want to, you know, move up to like airports and the meat of an army, which is artillery SAM or something in general from what we see. These are all factories for sure, so it's going to be 6 factories for Pabst. Pabst is actually going to make tanks again, which it's one of those, like, you know, you fool me once sort of things, you fool me twice. Swam hopefully will even block this. That body block was really good. And if your opponent just went tanks, you have to hope, like, you have to think maybe they will go tanks again. I don't know how effective the second tanks are going to be. Having these commandos for Swam is enormous, because it just really forces whatever's at home for Pabst to stay at home. Yeah, and to, like, you know, burn some gas on sending strikers out to deal with these commandos. It's only 1 gas for Pabst still, because the commandos were able to snipe this. So this is going to burn a ton of Pabst's gas. It is definitely efficient for Swam, I think. So huge play there. Left island is almost all Swams. Would love to see some more eco almost at this point from Swam. Maybe like a factory and a barracks up here, and then just eco or a dock to go across. It's an interesting question, though. I'm not actually really sure what Swam could do from this point. I guess it would depend on if Swam thinks that they have more economy than their opponent. 842 for Swam and 824 for Pabst. Maybe even another dock. No, certainly not another dock. This is 6 factory, 2 airport from Pabst, and neither player is really showing what the next move is. Yeah, okay, so this is pretty decent. I like the dock. I think that's a good play from Swam. It would be sweet if this factory was in the forest, something that someone said that my nickname sucks. How would anyone know who nickname is if I just say nickname? But something they mentioned is like, just always put the buildings in forests or mountains if you can. It takes 50% longer to build, but they get a defensive bonus. It's not going to matter with 2 full airstrips of strikers going, but I don't know. Sometimes it's like that detail may or may not come in handy, but I try to stick with it because, like, think about it, this is way more defensive that Pabst has all of this in the forests, and you never know when a few hits is going to be the difference between it working and not working, like defending. Still love that there's a factory here. And a dock, in fact. Helicopters from Swam. This is fine. Helicopters are always good. Getting these folks off of this island does become a priority. And probably to transfer them over this middle island here. It's great that Swam was able to keep getting the gases, because look at all these units again that are out of gas. Two refineries isn't enough. This is why Pabst is setting up a 3rd refinery. But the hope is maybe if Swam can keep going, keep ecoing, take back this middle island, it should still be more economy for them. 872 income for Pabst and 922 income for Swam. And I think this should continue to be more and more income for Swam over time. This is a lot of boats that are being produced out of this leftmost dock from Swam. I wonder if it would be safe to stop building ships at this point and maybe throw down one more factory to make sure to take back this island. Because this is really 2 factory versus 2 barracks. And for Swam, if you're looking at this, you know your opponent's down here. You know there's some factories in the forest. How many factories do you think your opponent has? And, like, can you outproduce that? If Pabst starts getting these 2 cities, that can change the economy situation. But yeah, and more industry for Swam back here. It always feels weird to build all the industry and then not build the city, but I don't know. Industry is like a more efficient thing to build for income from what we understand. This is so many strikers. Strikers aren't going to do great against the helicopters, so it's cool that the helicopters are still flying here, I think. Definitely need to get some more SAMs in the middle. But this is the second time that Pabst is able to launch these strikers, and it's just unfortunate to not have like any dock coverage, which docks aren't going to happen, right? Like, you're not going to move all your missile ships all the way out back. But even another factory pumping out SAMs. Commandos out of the barracks. Unfortunately, these commandos aren't going to be able to go anywhere. Might be able to do some commando drops if they swung all the way out here, but that's kind of risky. And this is where this defensive line is so clutch. Because this is going to take a while for the tanks to get through, and then especially with helicopters helping out, this is really good for Swam. I think this is really good for Swam. If we're Pabst, we need to pull back here. This is just too strong a position. The tanks are great when you can get around your opponent quickly, but funneling all of this into this big defensive choke, for Pabst, it's a tough question of what to do here. Probably even a dock. a dock to support this middle island, because the middle island is where a lot of like the battle's gonna go down. Town for Swam in the back, another factory. This is a great call. And I think this is a turning point in the game, because Swam has over 1,000 income. Paps is just over 900. This middle island will get entirely cleared up. Like, Swam's going to be able to take all of this, right? And this is a great drop with this transport boat. Yep, and getting more of the towns. I think at this point, a huge thing is just to keep ecoing for Swam, and that's what they're doing. We can hear the sound of a cow. Must be a farm. What else could it be? Paps has 2 full airports and 2 full airstrips, so like Paps should be able to keep launching stuff here. Like if they could launch strikers on this defensive position, there's enough planes, but with 2 full airports, and these ones could actually probably get kind of close. This might not be close enough to proc onto the missile boats, actually. Well, Paps is about to do exactly what I said maybe they should do, so let's see if these strikers actually get decent trades. If they all overshoot and hit these missile boats, it's not going to be sweet. But this is still a very strong position for Swam. Sam's coming into the picture only right now. Yeah, these missile boats are going to be clutch. It's going to be like 5 planes that go down. And then if the Sams get here, it's even worse. Yeah, let's see if these strikers on the bottom are able to reach this. They definitely aren't. Well, it just makes it more important for Paps to build another airstrip then. This is great from Swam. This is one of the most strategic parts of the map, especially with the SAM reinforcements coming in. Being able to clear up this island with 3 towns behind, these can all become cities. Each city is worth 10 income, like 10 squares worth of income, so it's quite enormous. And Paps is really just going for this. It's still just 6 factory. Paps is starting to work on the economy, which is a very smart move. Factory here to be defensive with some SAMs. Ultimately, this is going to get overrun. At this point, Swam might be in another situation where it's just like start grouping up units, right? Because this position is totally lost. The helicopters and the strikers are decent, but there's just too many SAMs that are part of this push now. The good thing for Swam is that this feels like the all-in moment from Pabst, because if they don't use this efficiently, which they so far kind of are in this second part of the battle, now that they've got through the defensive line, the game will be over. This will just be too much to lose. These 2 factories are a decent call. Probably would have been better suited to be in this mountain range if that was available, or even up in this mountain range, because these are quite close. If these tanks are quick, Paps is going to be able to jump on them, right? And Paps sees that they're not, like, these are relatively out in the open. Going for the SAMs, I don't mind from Pabst, but these planes, as this column gets further and further into Swam's base, the planes aren't even useful anymore because they can't reach that far. Yeah, okay, so Swam is going for more economy, which is the play. As soon as Swam thinks that they can hold this, they could just eco more. In fact, 2 factories. I wonder if with 3 factories, would that be enough? The problem about these 2 factories is they're actually so close that I wonder if they're going to be able to even get a unit out in time. Like, they might get 1. This really just needs to be a grouping up situation. Get a bunch of groups, try to body block the tanks. Paps does a really good job to launch those strikers. 914 income for Paps and 1372 for Swam. So Swam's just in a great spot. Swam could put down factories on this part of the island almost. It's really just a question of if these factories are going to be able to get online. And by the time Paps is able to kill these front 2, maybe this one, then these factories are probably going to start building. So this is actually probably the best thing Swam could do. Holy cow, this was a great call. This is a great call. This is so huge. for Swam, especially if these commandos get slippery and get away from Pabst. Cruiser for Swam here. Which I don't know how I feel like. That's pretty fine. Who gives? Yeah, you want a cruiser. That's fine. This is being dealt with. This looks really bad for Swam in a lot of ways, but this is actually fine. It would be nicer if the units were kind of getting grouped up instead of going in one at a time. But, you know, there's a million things going on. It's a game of line war. If the commandos can get the fuel dump, that's pretty sweet, but unfortunately they're not going to be able to. Fortunately for Swam, Pabst isn't really macroing at all. Like Swam has way more economy. And how many is this? Like, this is now 8 factories. Certainly all in from Pabst, because there's nothing really going on. Pabst needs to start building this town, I think. Like, we can see that Pabst has everything on the top right, but really either a dock or something. And Pabst, that's a scary play from Pabst with all the tanks. I kind of want to do that one game. You know, you just go 3 factory, build 6 tanks. That seems excessive, but you could definitely make it work. Yeah, now these units are getting cut off. Yeah, okay, so maybe building the factories in the back was good. This is probably gratuitous. 1 extra factory, because that could be a city. That could heavily contribute to a city. Especially, there's 2 more factories in the top. I think, like, even taking 2 of these factories that were built in this main part and just making it those 2 factories. Because Pabst's push is dead now at this point. There's no way that a 6 factory player can reinforce 8 or 7 factories here. Just over time, this is going to get thinned out. Especially because every time that, like, you know, every time a SAM dies here, it would be sweet if these helicopters didn't go yet. Because the SAMs are going to thin out over time. The helicopters might even be good for the reinforcing units. This is just the 6 factory all in. Really. And it probably reinforces why Swam needs a dock to go across to really open up a second front. Because Swam must know they have more economy. This is a great city in the back. That's a good econ move by Swam. Apps needs to start making the same happen, or this is going to run away from them, and there's still nothing going on in this far right island. Where is this other factory? We hear a factory for Swam up here in the north. Well, certainly Swam's not going to lose this middle island again. So yeah, see, this is huge. If there were even 2 more helicopters here, that would be even bigger. But I mean, this does a great job to even just soften up the reinforcing units. 2 cruisers, that's probably enough to stop at, especially since the cruisers can't start hitting anything here at this point. It would be really cool for Swam to keep sending things across. Even to just build a proxy base somewhere. It's a good push from Pabst. I mean, it's a lot of pressure, but it's just not doing enough. And this was definitely gonna turn. Like, so Pabst, we can see what Pabst is actually looking at here. You know, it's like 3-4 factories. And, I mean, clearly at this point, a lot of artillery. But going up north for Pabst isn't gonna be the play, because now Swam's gonna be able to push to this choke. So these 4 factories are actually going to come in clutch here, because Swam is probably going to be able to push to this pass, cut off the reinforcements, and then these 4 factories and all their units are going to be able to crush this. These 2 airports are the only thing that's sketchy, but I mean, Swam is making SAMs partly out of those factories. We can see if any econ is going down for Pabst on the right side. There's not. 5th factory in this mountain for Swam. Definitely would love to see another city out of Swam, because Swam has probably enough production at this point. This is a safe amount of production. I was gonna say, what one thing Pabst could start thinking about is a nuke, because they're they're very all in here. If you don't want to build the eco, then I feel like a nuke is like the next best pick, especially when there's so much artillery, but this is going to take too long to get up. It's going to have to be a defensive with the strikers. It'd be great for Pabst to start launching these strikers, because they've done a great job to save up gas at this point. Like, they learned their lesson, right? Like, at the beginning of the game. The defensive instinct to dig in here, I think, is also strong from Pabst in a lot of ways. It's only unfortunate that they're so behind on economy. Like, so far behind on economy. At this point, it must be wild. Pabst is just over 1k, yeah, and Swam is at 1500. This might be a decent trade for Pabst, depending on which way these planes go. If they all went to the right after their first runs, they would have been maybe fine. The ones who went over the ocean didn't quite get the best version of the briefing. And was there even any... Yeah, okay, so they're gonna... One plane, Pabst loses. Maybe two. I don't know. Pabst, I liked the digging from Pabst, and now I don't know what's going on. I mean, this force would be able to take out these factories if Pabst went right now. We can check if Pabst knows that these are here. Yeah, for sure. With this many units, Pabst has the vision. But this is a lot of factories from Swam. If Swam pushes and watches out for a nuke and sort of spreads out the units, it'd be great to get some air coverage up north from Swam. A dock would sort of do the same thing, because a Swam with this much economy, you can really start to multi-prong your opponent. Like, if you built a barracks up here and a dock, and just start island hopping a little bit, because Swam doesn't know that these are... I mean, they can make a reasonable guess that there are airstrips there, but these are relatively exposed, actually. These are great trades for Pabst. Some SAMs are gonna get mixed into this army. For Swam, it is such a large amount of artillery, though, and now these 5 factories in the north are coming online, so numbers-wise and units-wise, Swam is way ahead here. Way ahead. Now there's a town for Pabst on the right side. That's a great call to try to eco back. It almost would have been sweet to still be dug in here, especially because there is a nuke on the way. Because Pabst has gone for a nuke, you might want to, like, maybe the play is to be defensive. I wonder if this is a good push, because Pabst is going to save this army potentially, but over time, I don't think Pabst can hang out in the middle here, because Pabst still only has 6 factories. Are there more? No, it's only 6 factories for Pabst, right? And so Swam has, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 17 million, some factories, and like, so they're going to be able to get way more units here. And this is what's going to happen, is that Pabst is just going to unfortunately get sandwiched here. So the new prediction, Pabst doesn't even have enough money to launch this nuke, to build this nuke, because I think each rocket costs like 500, so you actually need a bunch of cash sitting there, pardon me, I don't know, there you go, and they don't quite have it, like, and they don't even have income, right? They're just over 1,000. Swam, I bet, is at like 1,700. Okay, so 1,600 for Swam. One city already done. Another city on the way. Could get a 3rd city for Swam. And I think if you're Swam, you're feeling very good at this point. Finally, some SAMs mixed in, so air coverage-wise, Swam's going to be okay. I almost feel like at this point for Pabst is sub-pen, but like, Pabst doesn't even have the money really to build a sub-pen. The missile pad definitely felt like a cool idea, felt like a good idea. Maybe if there's more cash, and then to pull back and then try to get a good nuke. This is huge because Swam has moved all of the SAMs. I don't know if Paps can see the exact buildings. Yeah, they definitely can. We've determined that they could before. So sniping the buildings would be pretty big for Pabst, and these are definitely all in ranged. It's just a big factory fight. And Pabst just keeps throwing stuff into this. Like, let's see what Swam has. So, if Swam just built some SAMs here, and really even made a dock. Okay, there's another city for Swam. I mean, Swam's income is getting huge. This trade route is up. That's another 10 territories worth of income. So many factories. And this is another factory that's or no, wait, yeah, this is another factory. Certainly a meat grinder game. 2 more factories from Pabst. If Pabst goes for a city, yeah, starts to build more, gets a trade route. The dock on the right side I love for Pabst. This artillery piece is, yeah, that's the way you make it. You just toss the body out of it, out of the factory. These strikers are still so good, but with 5 factory, some of them pumping SAMs, should be a pretty decent hold for, like, it's Paps is still going to do a lot of damage here, but if Swam can kill even 2 planes, it's not worth it, I don't think, with this sort of economy. Like, the economy difference, is it going to be 3 planes? Yeah. Yeah, see, and that now there's only 4 planes here. This is a cool move. This is a cool move by Swam to take this angled approach on the strikers. It's something I often forget about, but you can choose for the strikers to actually take any angle into an engagement that you want, as long as that line is within their, you know, range on the airport. Has Paps been able to? Okay, so Paps has been able to start a rocket. Paps going for cruisers. Funny enough, we saw somewhere that cruisers actually have a decent efficiency for capping territories. I don't know if that's true. This is, you know, hearsay, game of telephone. But that's what Pabst has built first. They don't have the money to keep building dock units. It's awkward timing because this nuke isn't really going to be finished in time to deal with a lot of this push. Swam might be able to actually get, like, here before this rocket even takes off. It's really going to be if Paps can continue to, like, trade well with these strikers somehow into now, like, enormous groups of SAMs and missile boats, while also econing on the top right of the map. Econ wise, Paps is at 1100 and Swam is at 1800. More factories for Swam. Yeah, here's a dock. This is a great play. This is a great play. Even another barracks, building commandos, or better yet, just get a transport plane and, like, I don't know, start transporting commandos up there to take a boat or something. Who knows? I mean, this is a lot of commandos. It'd be great for Swam to start getting this going, or perhaps, pardon me, for Swam to start getting the commandos going again. They can be so effective. This would be a wonderful spot for Pabst to nuke, but Pabst isn't going to be able to nuke that. The nuke definitely doesn't have the range to actually hit any of that town, I don't think. Maybe the dock almost? Yeah, okay, so like this, but it wouldn't destroy anything. I mean, it would destroy like a building or two, but it wouldn't, you know, seriously take out like all of this. It's just not close enough. This is plenty SAMs for Swam. Yeah, here we go. Two barracks. This is really good. Presumably commandos come into that. It would really be sweet for Swam to open up that second front. It's so much multitasking though. I mean, we're 41 minutes into this game. Both players are handling huge economies. 1,800 for Swam, almost 1,200 for Pabst. Who has the right idea here? I hope Swam's not still making more Sams. Yeah, that's okay though. Okay, this is great. This is gonna be huge. I mean, with this many commandos, if Swam could just like dive this refinery. Quantity has a quality all its own. This many SAMs and artillery, if you're wondering how many were needed to kill 2 tanks, it's probably this many. How can you not love SAMs? They just sound so cool. I don't know. Potentially controversial opinion. This trade route is fully saturated now for Swam, so that is worth 10 territories. Here's a nuke. Okay, we're not gonna miss it. And where's Pabst decided to put this? Right here. It's gonna kill all this artillery. It's actually quite a, that's about as good of a nuke, I think, as Pabst could do. Unfortunately for Pabst, though, there's still 2 full airports worth of strikers. There's only 3 SAMs as part of this push, and Swam still has a gazillion factories that they can push back into this, so there's no way that this push of Pabst is going to do anything. Yeah, and exactly, this is the play. Swam could even attack move it. I mean, this is a ridiculous amount of commandos, right? Pabst building some industry in the top right. I heard an airport, or maybe that's an airstrip for Swam. Now I'm desperately looking for where that was put down. Not sure, but it was probably an airstrip. Either way, Swam needs to build an airstrip because the airports are full at this point. The economies stay relatively unchanged, so I mean, this game is slowly over. Like, this push is gonna happen. Maybe there will be one more nuke. But if Swam keeps some SAMs over here, captures the rest of this territory, and just starts pushing, even eats another nuke, it's still gonna be okay. Because Swam has 4 cities. But it could be 4 cities. It'd be sweet to get this 4th city for Swam. And just keep going. Because, you know, at 100 economy a minute, that's not bad, but you really want to be keeping it a little bit more than that. It's so many factories. It's definitely a lot of factories for Swam. This is gonna be a nice... This will be a cool landing force if that's the plan. Not really sure what all the units up there are doing. Pabst going for a city now, which is great news for Pabst. And I assume these are going to deal with all the commandos, which are just doing great. Yeah, I think it'd be sweet for Swam to open up a second front. This was great. This was huge. It just takes away all the air support here for the opponent, but even to keep transport ships going, and more importantly get a transport ship going to this far right of the island and deny all this economy. Because if Pabst had all of those cities on the right, it'd be a lot closer than it is. 1137 income for Pabst and 1872 for Swam, so it wouldn't be like close, but with 2 full cities, if Pabst had those, that could be pretty decent. Pabst at this part almost has a second rocket. It's interesting to consider whether Swam can see it. Yeah, Swam wouldn't be able to quite get to this. Actually, if we use if we click tab, we can see where all the airports could go. So Swam could actually try to go figure out where this nuke was from, where this missile came from. It's not going to matter just because the income discrepancy is so large, especially now that Swam's going to be able to start chipping away at the income that Pabst has and taking away from Pabst, right? You always want to be taking territory that your opponent owns because you gain income, and more importantly, your opponent also loses that income. Here comes another nuke. Big play by Pabst. But we can see Pabst's money is now in the red, and they are totally broke. And there's just too much. These SAMs are trying to move out of the way. I wonder if they're going to shoot it down. They're going to shoot it down. Wow. That was very close. Okay, so we said that they wouldn't kill many buildings. I guess it certainly actually does kill all the buildings in the direct radius. That's not bad. I hope Swam only makes like 1 or 2 factories. Because I think that's actually, oddly enough, that's good for Swam, that it frees up some upkeep. Yeah, this is great. This is really great that Swam is actually now like scouting this. If hopefully Swam's quick to get rid of those commands once they notice that there's a bunch of SAMs firing. But either way, this landing on the top is going to be super clutch. Super clutch. Yeah, this artillery push is just going to do a devastating amount of damage. And this push on the top, especially since it's supported with SAMs. Oh, this is a great move by Pabst. I don't even know how Pabst knows that this is here. But these strikers could go help up top with these cruisers. Because cruisers are not good against strikers. They definitely need missile boats around them to deal with strikers. 1874 income for Swam, who's actually in negative income per minute. Pabst is at 1200, so Pabst in some ways actually coming back. Yeah, these strikers on the top, this is really good. This definitely needs to keep happening, this transport across. I think that's one of the best things that Swam is doing right now. Great trades. Missile boats do the most DPS to air units in the game. So by being able to just sit them here and they kill probably even 5 planes by the time this is done, I mean, this is just enormous. Yeah, this is big. This is big. If Swam picks a good landing spot for those commandos, those could do a ton of damage. Another missile on the way for Pabst. But it's just, you know, we can see every time that this happens, Swam pushes further and further forward. Right, so this is unsustainable, especially with this push at the top. If this didn't happen and Pabst was able to kind of get a foothold and actually build economy in the top, that could be game changing. Swam also would do good to actually try to hit this. Okay, well, so this landing by Swam is good enough. This is the point. It's lucky for Pabst that Swam didn't see these airstrips when the strikers came in to scout where the missile pad was, because I mean the strikers could just totally take this out right now. Yeah, there's one full airstrip of things. These factories aren't doing the best job to get used, but hopefully if they're able to just go across here, that would be big. These commandos are walking right into a bunch of artillery. The play is good. The idea is definitely good, but diverting those commandos, which, you know, there's a lot of things going on in this game, so it's not like that's the easiest thing to do, but that would get way more use out of them. With 5 SAMs against 8 strikers or whatever, I think that Pabst is going to be able to clean that up. Factory in the tops for Swam, that's pretty good. Probably mix in a barracks with it, especially given how much money there is. Almost 2k income for Swam. City is still not done on the water, which is unfortunate. It just would be 10 more, you know, territories worth of income, which could come into play. And with this landing and this kerfuffle, it's important for Swam to stay on this island, but pushing here is also totally fine. Especially since I think Swam knows that there's another rocket on the way. And when your opponent launches a missile at you, you know that there's a timer in your head of like, okay, well, in whatever minutes, like another missile is on its way. Yeah, here we go. Pabst almost has this done. Pabst is going to be able to launch another missile for sure, unless they're out of gas. You need 20 gas to launch a missile. So as long as these strikers don't get rid of all the gas that Pabst has, I think Pabst still needs to econ. Like, the commandos that are going up in the top for Pabst to clear that top right island is really good. This missile, depending on where it's going, it might not get through. There's a lot of SAMs here. But if it's dropping on the army, well, there you go. So I'm like 50-50 at predicting whether nukes will go on or like go off or not. But yeah, that's the amount of SAMs needed. And now the game is certainly over. It was over before. I mean, we can look at the income again. 1152 for Pabst and almost 2000 for Swam. The only economy Swam can really get is that city now. And then really just establishing a beachhead. It's unfortunate that this was lost. Second dock going for transport boats might even make sense. Yeah, wait, there's this economy. I mean, this is huge. Yeah, where did we hear the docks? Yeah, 2 more docks up top. That's pretty good. That is the play. And then we just keep meat grindering down this, whatever the heck we're gonna call this. Isthmus is a geographical name that sounds fancy. I think is that what this could be? Geography majors in chat are just losing it right now. City for Pabst. I mean, that's a comeback play, right? This is huge. If this happened 15 minutes ago, this game would be way different. Because then there'd be so many times that, you know, things were chipped away at down here. I mean, look at this already sand blob. Look at this already blob. And I say that with pride. This digging, see, like, because Pabst did this before, but then they got rid of it, unfortunately for them. This is already huge. These planes are dead now, because they won't be able to land anywhere, I don't think, unless they can get home. Like, all the way to these airfields. I don't know how this is going to work, actually. Like, with this plane in particular, it might just explode. Yep. It does. MVP commandos. Swam really just needs to start building buildings here, capturing one territory and just putting down like 2 racks or 2 factory into racks or something. And Pabst also has tons of money. Pabst is gonna dig in, and it's almost time for Swam to go for a nuke. At this point, here's the city, so this is like really a max out on the economic development Swam can do, except for taking this city after this town is done and the 3 industries are done around it. Meat grinding this is not a terrible idea. Definitely could consider a nuke though. I mean, it's almost 2,000 income, nearly 900 monies. Unfortunately, this isn't going to work. It's just not enough planes. Maybe with some commandos, but I don't know if that's going to make sense. Yeah, okay, so here is a nuke from Swam. Not a bad spot. I think that's a fine spot to put that. These commandos probably could just keep going at this point. There's 2 batteries of SAMs around that rocket. It's not going to work. The meat grinder feels bad. Here's actually a question. I guess interceptors probably could shoot missiles out of the air too, right? We gotta watch this again. I mean, it's just been... That's the 4th nuke. It's a very good nuke. Pabst knows how to launch a nuke. But Pabst is gonna walk into this many factories again. It's a great call to do commandos up here from Pabst, but Pabst is gonna run into a bunch of garrisons that are gonna make that not possible. Yeah, and like all this is just a big game of tug of war. But really, if these started landing, there's probably enough units here that could just overwhelm 2 artillery pieces, or even an airport of bombers here would be sweet to just start picking away at stuff. It's fine for Swam because Swam definitely has a better economy. But as for like killing blows, I don't know the quickest way to end it, but certainly getting this production back into play. And there's only 2 refineries for Swam, right? Probably need to start thinking about that 3rd gas. 2 more airports. This isn't like so terrible. I mean, it's not terrible by any means. I guess especially with like an airstrip coming up. Probably want to get the city pretty quick though, especially since this is going to be okay. I mean, these tanks aren't going to do great against the body block of artillery. Probably worth it in the end just to get rid of that nuke. Yeah, and here we go. This is certainly over. Holy cow. Over 2,000, over 2,100 rather income for Swam, 1,100 for Pabst. I wonder if Pabst was quicker to go for this economy. If Pabst actually had 2 cities already and a trade route, that could get really close. I think unfortunately for Pabst, it was just that first big push looked really cool, but it was definitely, I don't think that was super efficient. The nukes have been clutch. I think nukes would have still been efficient for Pabst based on how many things that they were able to get rid of with each nuke. Especially that nuke on all the production, that was pretty massive. Yeah, Swam's just putting down a bunch of factories at this point. I don't hate it. These factories, it would have been a lot cooler to get them on like one of the opponent's land masses to really try to take that economy back, but this isn't that bad. I mean, it's not a bad play at all, especially because Swam knows that they got rid of the nuke. It's unfortunate that these boats all have to land right in front of 2 cruisers. Just imagine the fear from the people on the boat as that's happening. And this is just still a meat grinder. 2 docks from Pabst. I don't even dislike it. Although Pabst, has to know there. It'd be very difficult to figure out a way that Pabst can come back at this point. Yeah, but this landing, Swam is good. Love the haste on those boats. Swam still has a decent amount of gas, so hasting the boats is pretty fine. I don't even know where another gas for Swam is. Probably have to go for a power plant. Potentially, or take this ocean gas. The only thing is that, you know, like you need 20 energy to launch a nuke. So making sure that Swam doesn't go below that if they need a nuke is important. Pabst, on the other hand, has so much just because of still making this depot. And this is where Swam needs, you probably, like, Swam, or pardon me, Pabst, because of this huge gas advantage, you kind of have to make it work, right? Like, there's 2 airports. How can you use your strikers fully hasted with, you know, because you have so much fuel, can you really make that work to your advantage? Because hasted strikers are very good. I think at this point the answer is no, but in general throughout the game, I wonder if that was a possibility. This landing is huge and is just going to destroy the rest of the income that Pabst has. Pabst building 2 barracks by that city on the far right, which is definitely the play, or a play, just because you don't want to lose that right side of the map. You have to start to support it. Sweet way to do it might actually be an airstrip for Pabst to try to get air coverage up to the north, because Swam's going to have to push through those mountains. Like, in this situation, it doesn't matter, because the economies are just, there's so much of a difference. This is not ideal for Pabst, but no one needs me to tell them that. The only good thing for these strikers is that they didn't fly over missile boats, which would have just shredded them more. Oh, last hit on 2 of those things. Wow, one striker comes back for Pabst. Yeah, it's pretty rough. That's another dock for Pabst. I don't mind the idea for Pabst to go for more docks. Because, but even subs probably would be potentially the more cost-efficient thing. This is a lot of docks, right? Like, this is 4 docks that are all making cruisers. That's very, very expensive. I don't know what Pabst could really do at this point. Love the barracks on the right. But Swam's just taking out everything here. And these probably need to be defensive lines. Like entrenchments, which is, I think, what Pabst is doing, or the intent of this. I mean, still it's body blocking all this artillery, but... Yeah, well, let's see where this nuke goes. Or Swam. We didn't even miss one nuke. Yeah, it's gonna go to the gas. It's gotta be the gas. Or the depot. Does this get through? Yes, it does. Looks so cool when, like, all the pipelines explode. In my humble opinion. I don't know if that's... was super worth it for Swam money-wise, but I totally understand why that's where the nuke went. It almost would have felt better to put the nuke here if you knew your opponent still pushes, but that's a fine nuke, especially given the situation in the game. Because again, 1100 income for Pabst, 2200 for Swam, who now has ore cities, a trade route, and is going to start building these cities too. Pardon me. What do you think Pabst could do to get back into this game? 3 cruisers against this many missile boats. What do you think wins? I think that many missile boats would get their butts kicked. And Swam agrees. And that's why they're out of here. Swam is going to run out of gas. So this was that second gas thing we're talking about. And Pabst has a lot of gas, so Pabst could even try to haste these cruisers for a little bit. And if Pabst could get some cruisers over here, this would be very helpful. There's a lot of artillery that the cruisers could help out with. I think cruisers do decent if they're standing, you know, floating in the water, shooting at artillery. I don't know if that's realistic, but that's what it feels like. Yeah, this our infantry is going to do nothing on the right side. I mean, the game is very clearly over. Second dock for Swam in the back. And Swam's low on money at this point. But, I mean, if they can keep this, probably building production up here would be great for Swam at this point. Yeah, this many strikers gonna be able to take down all these cruisers. Cruisers really don't do well at all against strikers like this. Right, we talked about this earlier. They have nothing really to shoot up. And Swam nearly has another rocket. Which, I'm not sure, we can't really see exactly how far Swam's rocket can shoot. But what does Swam see? I almost would want it here if this rocket can reach. You're guaranteed that there's at least one production facility. Or here. This gas could matter. This is a lovely idea from Pabst. But it's just not enough. Swam's gonna hit another rocket in a second. I mean, look at all this. Look at all these boats. I wonder what these boats could do. Maybe even like it's fine. At this point of the game, it's fine. I think Swam probably feels and it could feel that this was close to over. 3 docks on the right, on the left side. I think that's understandable from Swam, especially because they know that there's docks for the opponent at this point. You really don't want to lose the Navy game and get into a weird situation. Still no gas for Swam. A few power plants might be nice just because there is no easy third gas except for this water one, which is kind of scary. And submarines. Submarines could be sweet to get rid of those docks. Or like earlier in the game, get a sub pen to just kind of hang out. Build like even 2 or 3 if your opponent doesn't do anything, like doesn't actually use the water, but then just keep scouting with them. This is great that these missile boats are all the way down here now. Yep, this is great. This is actually a really good call. This could have happened a lot earlier, I think, for Swam. I'm glad Swam started doing it because I think this is really good. That's actually a great call. I mean, this would have been so clutch for these boats to be here a lot. Like, you know, like most of the game. I don't super hate that this is going to the docks, maybe? Yeah, docks are a good place to go here. And then presumably Swam pushes up if they have the gas to do so. Yeah, that's pretty good. That'll do. At this point, Swam can just push up, kill the docks, and probably even build another nuke over here or something. Right? Well, income-wise, it's still... Anyway, it's all good. GG. Very well played to both players. That was potentially one of the longest matches we've casted. But that was quite good. That started out with a good tank rush. Very interesting. Power plants in the back for Swam, nice. Those actually were made. Super clutch. Yeah, thanks for Swam for posting this in the Discord. Yeah. And GG. Very well played, of course, again. Disclaimers, of course, I stream on Twitch. Other folks do too. If you want to go to Twitch and check out the category and follow, and or feel free to join the Line War Discord to chat with other folks and, you know, learn stuff about the game, whatever you want. It's there for you. Have a good one. Enjoy. Peace.